Hi everybody, I'm working on a 1995 Chevy S10 today and working on the upper control arm. Just wanted to show you a couple things that I found helpful. This can be a tricky job, not in the sense that it's technically difficult, but at least on the V6 Vortec engines, there's just not a lot of space when you try to remove this upper control arm. So this is not so much a how-to video. I just want to give a couple of tips that I found useful. Again, you're going to want to remove the wheel, of course, jack up the truck. I've actually got a jack under the spring here just to relieve some of that tension, and you'll remove a connection here that holds on the ABS cable. That can be tricky in itself because there's a bolt on the outside of the upper control arm and the nut inside will spin. So I actually waited until I popped free the ball joint here, then you can at least lift that control arm and get access to that the back head of that nut. But when you get to that point, again, the control arm is sitting here, you've got bolts behind, and you've got studs fitting right here. So here's one of these studs. They're a little bit weird looking. They have that cap on the end, or some people call it a tombstone. So it's going to fit in that fashion. And again, the bolt's back there, the control arm is sitting here. You can remove these back nuts, and then there's just no way to actually remove the control arm. Another way to say that is, now that control arm is free, it's no longer bolted in, but you have to clear those studs, and you're hitting this steering arm here, you're hitting the exhaust manifold on the other side. People will say you can fiddle with it, get it just right, and it'll come off. This is the driver's side. Passenger side, I was able to do that. It was a struggle though, and you had to get it just right. And fiddle with it quite a long time, and then I did get that upper control arm free on the passenger side. Driver's side, I looked at that thing and just not a lot of space. Folks will actually jack up the engine a bit under the oil pan, put a board there, and they say they can get enough clearance that way. What I found that worked, I went under the vehicle and looked around. You can actually see the ends of these studs that are left holding that control arm in, or not allowing it to be, the control arm to be taken off, and I tapped them out. On the back side here, there's enough clearance once you're under the vehicle, and of course make sure you've got the vehicle supported. I had several jack stands, 2 jack stands. I always put a jack just in case, and put that guy up as well, just to be sure no accidents happen. You don't want that vehicle unstable in any way when you're under there. But I was able to, with this rear stud, have enough room to take a small hammer and just tap out that stud. It comes out here, and then you just pull it out. So again, this is the rear stud that I'm talking about. Not a bad idea to put the nut back on the end of it as you're tapping. You don't want to screw up the threads, of course. And by the way, these studs or bolts, whatever you call them, are special in the sense that, I don't know if it's right to say they're splined on the end. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's a lot like I don't know, a lug that holds a wheel on. These things actually press in. They will bite into the metal a little bit and hold. So that's why tapping them out is necessary. I've seen folks just tear off these tombstones, and you can get an impact on there and spin them out that way. That may tear up if that's right to say, the splines a little bit. You want to try to preserve those. Tapping them out will probably tear them up a little bit too. Front side bolt is a lot more hidden, I would say. There's just a lot of components to go through. It's a little bit more of a reach. There's no room to actually get a hammer directly on the end of this stud to tap it out. Instead, what I did, and really, anything will work as long as it's long enough. I just had a long 1/2-inch extension. Actually ended up putting an impact socket on it, and then I threaded that through all the engine components, just tapped it up against the end of this bolt or stud, and tapped it out. I gave it a few taps, and, came and checked, nothing had happened. I was like, uh-oh. Went back under, a few more taps, nothing happened again, I thought. Came back up, and it had released. So it doesn't take much, just a little bit of tapping, and they will come out. Once you get those studs out, the control arm just backs off and lifts out of the way. It's a thing of beauty compared to the struggle I had with the passenger side. So anyway, I'm getting ready to put this thing back together, which I think is now the easy part. And you can see there's just a lot going on here. There's lines. Again, there's this steering arm here. There's just not a lot of clearance, but I should be able to place this new control arm, put the studs back in, thread the bolts on. There's some spacers. I'll show you those in just a moment for alignment purposes, and you have to keep those in order so you know the number of spacers in the front versus number of spacers in the back. Not a bad idea to get an alignment after you do this job anyway. But I'm hoping for an easy reinstall, and actually the removal of this thing was not really as bad as I thought. You can see I've got the rotor here, and I guess the knuckle or the spindle supported when you pop free this ball joint. This thing will release, and you've got a brake line here. You don't want that under tension. You've got your ABS cable. You don't want that stretched either. So I end up usually just put a jack stand there and hold it, and it's good enough. I didn't remove the caliper. I didn't feel a need to do that. So hopefully I'll have enough wiggle room here and just put the new ball joint stud, if you will, back in there, and it comes with the new control arm and should be all set. I'll show you really quickly. Here's the old control arm, and what happens, these bushings will go bad, and that's the case with mine. I don't know if you can see very well, but they're just chewed up, torn apart here, out around, whatever you would say. I think I tore the ball joint sleeve a little bit when I was getting it off, but the ball joint's actually not in bad shape. Symptoms of this is you'll see when it starts to get bad, your wheel will become cockeyed, and that's one indication. Another thing, when you turn the wheel, you'll hear kind of a gunk or a clunk, so you know your control arm is going bad. Folks will just press out, get new bushings, get a new ball joint, grind these off, replace the ball joint that way, and just reuse the control arm. I found a fully loaded control arm, that is, it's got new bushings, it's got a new ball joint. I filled that up with grease already. It's got a little Zerk fitting on the back there. This thing is like $58 actually from Rock Auto. Again, I've got a 95 Chevy S10, so that's the part number I'm using, a Moog product. This is the same part I replaced on the other side. Probably you should do them as a pair, but I ended up replacing one about a year ago, passenger side, and finally got around to driver's side. Anyway, just wanted to do a quick sort of, I guess, show and tell, sort of what I'm into, and some things that I found useful. The 2.2 liter S10s, I think these control arms are maybe a lot easier. Where you get into trouble is, again, the V6, the Vortec engines, where you just don't have clearance to get these control arms off, and that's what creates all the hassle and the difficulties and I guess the struggle. Anyway, thanks. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have some tips or tricks, and hope you have a great day. Take care. Hi guys, we're all put together. Here's the new control arm. I just wanted to show you, I'm not sure I remembered before, these are the spacers. And there's 2 in my car, up on the front here, and then back here, barely reach them, there's about 5. So I don't know if I showed you that before. We're all tightened down, torqued down, about ready to go for a test drive. Things are back together. So again, thanks for checking out the video, and take care.